On today's 11 by 14 inch canvas, I'll be stenciling, paper painting, and decoupaging. If you would like the stencils I'm using, you can click on the PayHip link below to purchase my digital download files. This will give you instant access to my supply list and instruction sheet, stencil SVG cut files, and my print for hand cut, tracing, or transfer files. So let's get started. I've mixed some dark gray into my green to make a darker green, and I'm just covering my board with my chip brush. Big fan of these chip brushes. Then I'm just going to tap all over to add in some nice little texture, bring it all together. I've cut my tulips out of some pretty thick cardstock, so they're going to hold up pretty good. I'm watering them, wadding them up, and then unfurling them, getting them ready to go with some nice texture. Tulips come in so many colors, and they're all beautiful, but I'm going to do kind of a peachy yellow mix today for my tulips. Just using some different colors until I get what I want. I like to use a popsicle stick to mix my paints, and then I just wipe off the end and let it dry and use them over and over and over again. Now I have a point on one side of my tulip, so I want to make sure that I do half the flowers with the point on the right and half the flowers with the point on the left. That's what I'm pointing out here. I originally made this as a kit to sell on Etsy, so that's why you see me talking to the camera with my hands. Now I wish I would have flipped some of these over going the opposite direction instead of having all of my yellow ones going one way and all of my peachy ones going the other way, but I didn't think about it until it was too late. So now I'm just using some of my yellow with some water mixed in and going over my flowers to dab on a little background color. Whenever I paint paper or decoupage paper, I always work on waxed paper because then I can move everything to another part of my studio to dry while I'm working on something else. And when they're dry, they come right off the wax paper, no problem. As you can see, I'm not changing out my water in between. I'm just going right in to the pink and continuing on. Tulips are still wet, and I'm going to dab a little bit of the opposite color on each set. And I'm just going to dab on top with a baby wipe to help blend the colors. Or maybe that's a paper towel. I'm not exactly sure, but I think either one would work great. I'm about to finish up here, and then I will slip my palette and my brush sometimes if I'm coming right back into a Ziploc bag, and that way I can keep it moist enough to continue. I'm going to start messing with my peachy color to make it a little darker to do my edges of my tulips. Going to take me a little bit to get it just like I want it. Using my liner brush to finish off the edges with a little bit of the darker peach and a little bit of yellow here and there. Now I've got my dauber, which is a clothespin and a makeup sponge with about a 1/2 inch sticking out the bottom. This is what I use to do my stenciling most of the time. And I've got my stencils, and I'm going to go through and I'm going to add in my little veins in the flowers. And I'm going to switch it up between the yellow and the peachy color, or my kind of pinky color there. As you can see now, there, just a nice subtle finishes them off. I'm going to make up a lime green color that I'm going to use to stencil my mandalas on top of the dark green. I like to get a good bit of paint on my dauber and then tap it off on another portion of my palette so that I don't have too much paint going into my stencil. I don't want it seeping underneath if I could help it. And I'm getting a little bit of my teal and then tapping on here and there, not completely covering it, just so that I have the two colors there, giving some nice little coverage. My canvas is dry, and now I need to decide where my stem flower is going to go, so I know where my stems are going to go. So I'm just trying to come up with a pleasing arrangement here. Hopefully you agree with what I come up with. Starting with my raised flowers, I'm going to go through, take them off, and put a dot with chalk so that I know that's where my stem is going to end as I stencil. Now I'm going to go in with my stem stencil and add my stems with a little bit of the green and the blue here and there. Move my stems around as I go so that they're all going different directions. Stems are on. Now I'm going to line up my flowers again, check on my placement, see if I need to make any changes. And kind of what I notice is there's a couple of places I wish I had a mandala in the background. So I'm going to take off my flowers and add a couple of mandalas in a couple of spaces. I'm taking my Mod Podge, and on the flowers that are going to be on top or raised, I am going to Mod Podge them on the front of the back and lay them out on my on my wax paper to dry. And they'll come right off easily. They have to be completely dry. Want brush strokes, so I'm tapping all over at the end on the fronts. Now I'm going to start Mod Podging on my tulips. I like to put a little bit down, then put my tulip down. Remember, this is heavy cardstock, so I'm really smushing with my fingers and then tapping over top to make sure that I've got a nice even coat of the Mod Podge on there. I do water my Mod Podge down a bit. I think that Mod Podge works way better when it's a little bit thinner in most applications for me. Finishing up my last tulip, and then I'm going to make sure that I cover my entire board with Mod Podge. And I'm going to tap all over so it all has the same texture, same amount. That helps it dry better too, or faster, or more evenly. Ooh, there's the word I'm looking for, more evenly. And then I'm going to take my baby wipe and tamp all over just to make sure all the texture's the same, and that's how I do it. Canvas is dry, and now I'm checking my placement of my stems and my tulips. I realize there's a couple of places that I want to do a little bit better job with my stems, so I'm going to go in and take care of that. And then afterwards I'm going to pounce just a little bit of Mod Podge on top of those so that everything has the same texture and will last forever and ever. And now I'm taking my tulips and I'm adding some thick foam tape to the back to really raise them up. And I'm also using a little bit of tacky glue on there just to make sure they are all set. And then I'm pressing them into place. Hey, if you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button and subscribe. I'd also love to hear from you if you want to leave me a comment. If you hit the bell button, YouTube will notify you each time I had a new video. Thanks so much for joining me. Until next time.